The sandstorm had almost swallowed us whole. Gale-force winds ripped through the dig site, turning the Egyptian desert into a swirling maelstrom of dust and grit. Our tents flapped violently, metal poles creaking under the assault. I tightened my keffiyeh around my face, shielding my mouth and nose, while Dr. Adrian Kane, the lead archaeologist, shouted over the deafening wind. "We need to get inside," he barked, waving toward the entrance of the partially excavated tunnel. "Inside the pyramid? Are you serious?" Calloway, our geophysicist, squinted through the dust. "That structure's been sealed for over 4,000 years. We shouldn't even be touching it." "We're already touching it," I countered, pulling my flashlight from my belt. "And if we stay out here, we're gonna be buried alive." Kane didn't hesitate. He gripped the rope we'd secured around a limestone slab and yanked hard. The rest of the team, 4 others, followed suit. With a final groan of shifting stone, the slab gave way, revealing a passageway sloping downward into inky blackness. The storm roared behind us. I didn't need more convincing. We hurried inside, one by one, descending into a tunnel untouched by human hands for millennia. The air inside was thick, stale, dry, and ancient. Our footsteps echoed, sending tiny clouds of disturbed dust swirling in our flashlight beams. "Jesus," whispered Laura, a historian specializing in hieroglyph. "This place, it's pristine." She wasn't wrong. Unlike the rest of the Giza complex, this chamber showed no signs of erosion. No water damage, no collapsed sections. It was as if time itself had stopped the moment this passage was sealed. Kane ran his hand along the smooth walls. "There should be inscriptions. But there's nothing. No cartouches. No symbols. Something about this doesn't feel right," Calloway muttered. "We ran GPR scans on this entire sector of Giza. This tunnel shouldn't even exist. Yet here we are." I led the way, my flashlight flickering as we pressed deeper into the unknown. Then the floor changed beneath my boots, from rough-cut limestone to something else. Something metallic. I stopped. "Hold up." I aimed my beam downward. The floor, previously natural stone, had shifted into something impossibly smooth, dark, and reflective. Almost like obsidian, but not quite. "What the hell?" Laura crouched, running her fingers across the strange material. "This isn't natural." Kane exhaled sharply. "That's because it isn't stone." My gut tightened. The tunnel had led us to an impossible chamber. The ceiling stretched high, vanishing into darkness. The walls were seamless, lacking the careful stacking of limestone blocks typical of pyramid interiors. And at the far end of the room, something stood waiting. A doorway. At least, it looked like one. Unlike the rest of the chamber, this doorframe pulsed faintly, like it was alive. Strange, shifting lines of light coursed through its surface, forming symbols that no one in human history had ever documented. "Okay," Calloway said, stepping back. "This just turned into an Indiana Jones nightmare. We need to document this," Kane whispered, reaching for his radio. "This changes everything." The moment he pressed the transmit button, the doorway responded. A low hum filled the chamber. The shifting symbols glowed brighter, the strange lines of light pulsing faster, as if reacting to us. The very air vibrated with energy, a deep thrumming sound reverberating in my skull. Then, the door slid open. No dust. No ancient grinding of stone. It moved too smoothly, too effortlessly, revealing a darkness beyond that swallowed our flashlights. None of us spoke. None of us breathed. And then a sound drifted from the void beyond the threshold. A whisper. Not wind. Not movement. A voice. Speaking something indecipherable. Something not human. Laura stumbled back. "That's impossible." My pulse pounded in my ears. "No one's been down here in over 4,000 years. There shouldn't be anyone." The whispering grew louder. It wasn't just one voice. It was many. And they were getting closer. "We need to go," Calloway hissed. "Now." But Kane, damn him, took a step forward. "If there's something beyond this door, we have to." The shadows moved. Something stepped forward from the darkness. My brain rejected what I was seeing. Its body was wrong, tall, impossibly slender, yet armored in something that gleamed like polished bone. Its elongated skull lacked facial features. No eyes, no mouth. Just a smooth, unbroken surface that somehow still turned to look at us. And then, it spoke. The same whispering voices, layered over one another, rippling through the air. I didn't understand the words, but I felt them, like a knife in my skull. Lara collapsed, clutching her ears. Calloway swore, stumbling back. Kane, frozen, eyes wide with terror, couldn't move. I gripped my flashlight like a weapon. We are leaving. Now. The creature twitched. And then, the doorway slammed shut. Everything plunged into darkness. A sudden pressure crushed my chest. The air felt thick, suffocating, as if something was wrapping around us, seeping into our skin, pressing into our skulls. Then, the chamber shifted. The floor trembled beneath us, and a low, guttural rumbling erupted from below. Jesus Christ, Calloway gasped. The whole place is… I didn't let him finish. We run. Now. I grabbed Lara, yanking her to her feet. Kane snapped out of his daze, his eyes wild with panic. We turned and bolted. Behind us, the whispering turned into a scream. The chamber collapsed inward, the walls warping, twisting. The smooth, metallic floor cracked apart, something massive stirring beneath it. We sprinted up the tunnel, lungs burning, the vibrations intensifying. The storm outside still raged, but it was nothing compared to what was happening down here. We hit the entrance, diving out just as the tunnel caved in behind us. A plume of dust and sand erupted into the storm-ridden air. We lay there gasping, hearts hammering. No one spoke. No one moved. And then, a deep, resonant boom echoed from beneath the pyramid. A sound that did not belong to this world. Kane turned to me, his face pale, his expression haunted. That wasn't a tomb. I swallowed hard, staring at the ruin we had just escaped from. No. I met his gaze. It was a prison, and we had just woken something up. The rumbling beneath the pyramid didn't stop. Even as we scrambled away from the collapsed tunnel, I could feel it, a deep, guttural vibration that seemed to pulse through my bones. The storm outside had nothing on this. Something was moving beneath the sands. Get to the jeeps, I shouted, gripping Lara's arm as she stumbled. Calloway and Kane weren't far behind, their eyes darting toward the shifting ground. Then, boom. A shockwave rippled out from beneath us, sending a plume of sand sky-high. The jeeps, parked barely 50 meters away, flipped like toys, metal crumpling on impact. "What the hell is happening?" Calloway yelled, shielding his face from the flying debris. I didn't have an answer. But I did know one thing. We weren't safe here. I turned, eyes locking onto the pyramid itself, and my stomach dropped. The ancient limestone structure was changing. Cracks spiderwebbed up its surface, glowing with a deep, pulsing light. The apex, once a solid capstone, had fractured, revealing something beneath the rock. Something metallic, shifting, alive. And then, it opened. A beam of light shot into the storm-darkened sky, splitting the heavens with a sound like tearing metal. I felt it before I understood it. A pressure in my skull. A whispering voice inside my head, layered, incomprehensible. Lara screamed, clutching her temples. Calloway fell to his knees, blood trickling from his nose. Kane was frozen, his mouth opening and closing in silent terror. I fought it, barely, clenching my jaw as the voice thundered inside me. It wasn't speech. It wasn't thought. It was raw intent. And it only meant one thing. The prison beneath Giza was never meant to be opened. And now, it wasn't closed anymore. The ground erupted. I barely had time to react before something burst from the sands in front of us. A massive, insectoid limb. Jet black, segmented, lined with jagged barbs, shot out of the earth, slamming into the wreckage of our vehicles. Metal screeched as the jeeps were flattened in an instant. Another limb followed. Then another. And then the thing pulled itself free. It was impossible. The sheer scale of it sent my brain into a tailspin. 4 stories tall, a mass of writhing limbs and shifting armor, its body made of the same material as the pyramid's hidden chamber. Its head, or what passed for one, was elongated, a smooth, eyeless surface that pulsed with the same eerie glow. And when it turned toward us, the whispers became a roar. I moved before I could think. Run! Kane hesitated, just for a second before the thing lunged. A limb slammed down where he had stood, sending up a shockwave that launched us off our feet. I hit the ground hard, rolling through the sand. My ears rang. My vision blurred. And then, the screams started. Not ours. The camp. I twisted, looking past the wreckage of our dig site. A mile away, another cluster of tents had been set up. The rest of our excavation team, Egyptian officials, security personnel. They never saw it coming. A second creature burst from the ground near the camp, its limbs scything through tents and vehicles like paper. People ran. People screamed. It didn't matter. They were being cut down. Blood painted the sand. And then something worse happened. The creatures weren't alone. Figures, tall, emaciated, and wrong, crawled from the cracks in the pyramid. Humanoid, but not. Their limbs were too long, their skin ashen and stretched tight over jagged bones. Their heads, featureless except for gaping, vertical slits where mouths should be. And when they opened, they screamed. The sound shattered the air. And the people still alive? They dropped. Not killed. Not attacked. Possessed. Their bodies convulsed, their eyes turning black as night, and then they stood up again and turned toward us. Move, move, move. I grabbed Lara, pulling her to her feet. Kane and Calloway were already running, their faces pale with horror. We're dead, Calloway gasped. We're actually... Shut up and keep running. The storm made it impossible to see more than 50 feet ahead. But that was the only advantage we had. The creatures, whatever they were slower in the chaos. For now, the desert stretched before us, flat, endless, no cover. If we stayed out here, we'd be picked off. I grabbed my radio. Control. This is Carter. Do you read? Static. I switched channels. Anyone? We need evac now. More static. Then, Carter. A voice. A familiar one. It took me a second to place it. Reyes. One of our logistics officers, stationed back in Cairo. She was hours away. But right now, she was our only hope. Reyes. Jesus Christ. We have a situation. I know. My blood ran cold. Wait, what? Her voice was eerily calm. You opened it, didn't you? I stopped running. What the hell are you talking about? A pause. Then, the vault. I stared back at the ruins of the dig site. The pyramid, still glowing, the storm raging around it. The creatures moving through the wreckage. And a single, horrifying realization settled over me. This wasn't an excavation. This was a containment zone. And we had just failed to keep it closed. Reyes, I said, my throat dry. Tell me what's happening. Another pause. And then she said something that made my stomach drop. You're already dead, Carter. The radio cut out. A shadow passed over me. I turned too late. Something hit me. I flew backward, my body slamming into the sand. The impact knocked the air from my lungs. My vision blurred. And as I tried to move, to breathe, a figure loomed over me. One of the humanoid things. Its mouth slit widened. And then it leaned down, whispering something into my ear. I didn't understand the words. But I felt everything change. The world darkened. The sand turned to black glass beneath me. And in the sky, something vast shifted in the clouds. Something watching. Something waiting. And then, everything went black. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light. It was alive. A pressure. A presence. A thing. I couldn't see. I couldn't move. I was suspended, weightless, like my body no longer belonged to me. But I could hear. Whispers. Thousands of them, layered over each other. Some close. Some inside my skull. And beneath them all, a single voice, low and resonant. "We are awake." My vision snapped back like a rubber band. I was on my back, staring up at the storm-racked sky. The pyramid loomed above, its cracks glowing, its structure shifting as if trying to reform itself. And standing over me, the thing that had whispered. It was taller than before. Taller than it should be. Its limbs were elongated, stretching wrongly as if they had no fixed form. Its face, if it even had one, was a shifting void, folding in on itself like an optical illusion made real. It bent closer. "You hear us now," it said. I couldn't breathe. I wasn't sure if I even needed to breathe anymore. Because in that moment, I wasn't just me. I was them. I saw flashes of something beyond time, beyond reality, a war fought long before humans had words for it. A war that had ripped the sky open, that had shattered planets, that had ended with a prison buried beneath the sands of Egypt. The creatures, the prisoners, weren't just monsters. They were gods. And we had let them out. I tore free from whatever held me, gasping as my body slammed back into reality. And then, a gunshot. The thing above me lurched, a chunk of its body vanishing into black mist. I rolled away, gasping, turning to see Kane. He was standing a few meters away, rifle smoking, his face a mask of sheer terror. "Get up, Carter," he bellowed. I didn't hesitate. I scrambled to my feet, every muscle in my body screaming. The creature twisted its head toward Kane, its shape shuddering, as if deciding whether it should remain humanoid or become something else. Then, it moved. Not ran. Not lunged. Shifted. One moment, it was meters away. The next, it was in Kane's face. He had no time to react. Its arm-lengthened hand plunged into his chest. Kane's scream never came. Because he wasn't killed. He was consumed. His body imploded, collapsing inward like a dying star. His skin, his bones, his everything folded into the creature's arm, absorbed into whatever nightmare existence it came from. 1 second, Kane existed. The next, he didn't. No and oh. Lara's voice ripped through the chaos. She was still alive. So was Calloway. For now. The horrors spilling from the pyramid were everywhere now. The humanoid ones, their screams splitting reality. The massive, insectoid titans tearing through sand and steel alike. And above them all, the sky ripped open. It was no longer a storm. It was a wound. A massive, gaping tear in reality itself. And something was looking through. Something bigger. Something waiting to come through. Lara grabbed my arm, dragging me forward. "Move. Move." I ran. We all ran. But there was nowhere left to run. We made it to what was left of the camp, burning vehicles, scattered bodies, nothing intact. "Reyes," I shouted into my radio, my breath ragged. "If you're still out there, we need extraction." Static. Then, "I'm coming." Her voice was different this time. Colder. I didn't have time to dwell on it. Because as I turned, I saw the fleet. Not human. Not ours. The air split apart as ships, massive, elongated, covered in pulsating organic plating, descended. This wasn't the Egyptian military. This wasn't the UN. This was something else entirely. And as the first ship touched down, figures emerged. Tall. Armored. Not human. They were watchers. The jailers of this prison. And we had triggered their return. Lara's grip on my arm tightened. "Tell me they're here to help." I couldn't. Because I already knew the truth. They weren't here to help us. They were here to erase the mistake we had made. All of us. And then, the first shot was fired. A pulse of energy ripped through the air, slamming into one of the creatures near the pyramid. It howled, its form rupturing like liquid metal. The Watchers were firing indiscriminately. At the creatures. At the humans. At everything. And in that moment I realized, this wasn't a rescue. This was extermination. And we were caught in the middle. The battlefield was chaos. Watchers advanced in perfect formation, their weapons warping reality as they fired. The creatures from the pyramid retaliated, their forms morphing, shifting to match their attackers. A war was starting. A war that should have stayed buried. Calloway was screaming into his radio. "We need exfil. We need out." And then I saw it. One of the Watchers turning toward us. Its armor pulsed, shifting between solidity and something else. It knew we didn't belong. It knew we had seen too much. It raised its weapon, and Rhea's voice cut through my earpiece. "Run. Now." A roar split the air. One of the massive insectoid creatures lunged into the Watchers' ranks, tearing through their formation with sickening efficiency. That was our chance. I grabbed Lara. "Go. Go now." We bolted. Through fire. Through bodies. Through war itself. I didn't know where we were going. I just knew. If we stayed, we died. And then, a shadow fell over us. I looked up. A ship. Not a Watcher's. Not one of theirs. Rhea's. She had come. The hatch opened, the ship descending low enough for a jump. I didn't think. I grabbed Lara and leapt. Calloway followed. We hit metal, rolling onto the floor of the bay. The hatch sealed behind us. And then, the ship shot into the sky. Leaving the battlefield behind. Leaving the prison behind. Leaving hell behind. But as I looked out the viewport, I knew. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And Reyes? She wasn't the same person I had spoken to before. She turned to me, eyes dark. And she smiled. "We need to talk." The ship rocketed into the atmosphere, flames licking the hull as we tore away from the carnage below. The war still raged, Watchers battling the horrors of the pyramid, reality itself bending as things that shouldn't exist clashed in the open air. I collapsed against the bulkhead, my breath ragged, hands trembling. Lara was next to me, clutching her rifle like a lifeline. Calloway sat on the opposite side of the bay, eyes hollow, mouth set in a grim line. We were alive. But I didn't feel like we had escaped. Not yet. Reyes stood at the front of the cabin, back to us, hands gripping the control panel. The glow from the instrument readouts painted her in sickly greens and blues, highlighting the sharp, unnatural shadows on her face. Something was wrong. She had gotten us out, had saved our lives, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the Reyes I knew. She turned. And I knew. Her eyes, once a sharp, calculating brown, were now black as the void. No whites, no pupils. Just endless, consuming darkness. And when she smiled, it wasn't her smile. "Buckle up," she said. "We're leaving the system." The words should have reassured me, should have made me feel safe. But her voice had changed. Like something else was inside it. Inside her. I sat up, gripping my harness. "Reyes, where the hell are we going?" Her smile didn't falter. "Home." The ship's engines roared, and the stars stretched into infinity as we tore into deep space. For the first few hours, nobody spoke. Lara sat with her knees pulled to her chest, her expression distant. Calloway stood near the viewport, staring at the receding image of Earth, his jaw tight. I watched Reyes. She didn't sit, didn't rest. She just stood at the console, hands on the controls, unmoving. I had seen Reyes exhausted before. I had seen her bleeding, terrified, pushed to her limits. This wasn't exhaustion. This was something else. Finally, I broke the silence. "What the hell happened down there?" Reyes didn't turn. "We won." Lara laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "That wasn't a win, Reyes." Reyes' fingers tightened around the console. I sat forward. "What did you do?" This time she turned. And I saw it. A flicker. A shadow moving beneath her skin. Like something was wearing her. Her lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. I sealed the gate. Something inside me twisted. "The gate?" I repeated. "Not the prison?" Reyes just watched me. A cold shiver ran down my spine. She didn't seal the prison. She had sealed the exit. And something had come through before it shut. Something inside her. "Reyes," I said carefully, my hands gripping my harness. "Are you still in control?" Her expression didn't change. But something in her eyes flickered, like a reflection that didn't match the real world. For a second, just a second, I saw something else staring back at me. A presence. A void. And then, she blinked. And it was gone. She turned back to the controls. We should reach the outer colonies in 6 hours. You should rest? But there was no resting after what I had just seen. I glanced at Lara. She was staring at Reyes, her face pale. She had seen it too. Hours passed. Nobody slept. Calloway was pacing. Lara was sitting near the bulkhead, knife in hand, staring at Reyes. Reyes never moved. Just stood at the controls. Waiting. Something inside me screamed that we needed to act now. Before it was too late. I stood up. Reyes? The lights flickered. And then, the ship shuddered. Alarms blared. Warning signs flashed across the screens. Gravity distortion detected. Unknown presence on board. A sound slithered through the ship. Not metal. Not machinery. Something alive. And then, the walls moved. The metal warped, shifting like flesh. A whisper crawled through the air. Not Reyes. Not any of us. Something else. Calloway grabbed his rifle. What the hell is happening? The whisper turned into laughter. Not sound. Not a voice. A concept of laughter, pressed into my mind like a disease. And then Reyes turned around. Or, what was left of her did. Her body split apart. Skin unraveling into black tendrils, her mouth stretching into something inhuman. Her voice. Or the thing inside her. We are home. And the walls screamed. The ship collapsed into chaos. Calloway fired. The bullets hit Reyes. No, what used to be Reyes, but they did nothing. The creature shifted, absorbing the impact like liquid shadow. And then it moved. Too fast. It was on Calloway in an instant, tendrils wrapping around him, pulling him in. His scream. It never finished. One moment, he was there. The next, he was gone. Lara grabbed my arm. We have to get to the escape pods. Now. I was already moving. The ship was melting around us, the corridors warping, twisting. The creature's laughter followed us, the walls pulsing, the metal turning to flesh. It wasn't just on board. It was becoming the ship. We sprinted into the launch bay. 2 escape pods left. Lara grabbed the controls, ripping the hatch open. Get in. I hesitated. Something was wrong. Too easy. The creature was letting us go. I turned. And saw it. It was standing at the far end of the bay. Its body was no longer human. Just an outline of something vaguely Reyes-shaped, tendrils dripping from where her arms used to be. And then it spoke. Run. Spread us. I felt my stomach drop. This was the plan. Not to kill us. To let us escape. To take a piece of it with us. To infect everything. Lara, wait. But it was too late. She hit the button. The escape pod launched. I barely made it inside before the doors sealed. And outside the window, the ship collapsed inward. Like a dying star. Like Reyes had. And then, the void took it. The last thing I saw was that smile. Not human. Not anymore. And then, darkness. We drifted in silence. 4 hours. Neither of us spoke. We were alive. But I knew. We hadn't escaped. Lara was shaking. Do you think? I don't know, I said. But I could still hear it. That whisper. That laughter. Not from the ship. Not from Reyes. From inside me. I looked down at my arm. A single black vein just beneath the skin. Spreading. And I knew. It wasn't over. Not yet. Not ever.